Happy Friday. Welcome into another edition of Daily Faceoff Live, streaming live on the DFO YouTube, looking for your off-season inbox questions for our insider Frank Seravalli. And as always, we are a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Frank Seravalli surviving quite the storm in Philly.
Yeah, it was a crazy, 24 hours. I don't even know. I obviously, as evidenced by my tweet at 3 a.m. with Sam Bennett in 11 in Miami. Sleepless night, no power here. You can see my lights behind me are not quite right, and it's been an adventure. A very sweaty, hot night and very dark.
But not only did you make it to the show, you come with gifts. 7 new names on the trade targets board. We'll talk about that in our big segment, but let's kick off the show with a little bit of breaking news from this morning. Captain Sirius, Jonathan Toews, is heading back to his home province. Toews and the Winnipeg Jets have agreed on a 1-year contract. It can't be official until July 1st, but Toews is indeed heading north to Winnipeg. And listen, it's a $2 million base, Frank. I think everyone agrees the fit is really, really nice between Toews and the Jets, who are going to need a centerman. I mean, in the best of times, also with Adam Lowry out. So let's maybe just start there. The fit between Toews and Winnipeg.
Couldn't be better. I mean, you're talking about a player who oozes leadership, success, Stanley Cup Conn Smythe pedigree. And, oh yeah, by the way, happens to play the position that your team was in desperate need of and couldn't properly fill at last year's trade deadline. So you mean to tell me a team with oodles of cap space and, certainly the need and want to do this can bring in this player with very little risk to see if he can bounce back now fully healthy after not playing in the NHL for a couple years? I mean, I can't think of a better marriage, to be honest. This fits for Toews and his family. This fits for the Jets, and it allows both of them together to team up and go chase what would be Winnipeg's first Stanley Cup and a fourth for Jonathan Toews, which would put him in very special category, especially doing it potentially in 2 separate places.
37 years old, last played an NHL game on April 13th, 2023. But as you can see on your screen right now, the last time he played, he was actually relatively effective. And that's with the health stuff going on. 15 goals, 16 assists in 53 games. Prorated, that's a near 60-point pace, 23 goals. Like, again, this is a guy who I think can come in and make an impact. And his impact won't just be measured offensively either. Like, he's obviously going to play a key role for this Jets team. But the point is, I don't think this is just him coming to throw a stick up in the air and say, look, I did it. I made it back for an NHL game. This is a guy who, if he's coming back to make an impact. That's not how Jonathan Toews is wired.
Yeah, what would be the point of that? Just to say you did it? I mean, That's not in his nature. Not that it matters to him, but this is already an NHL top 100 player, a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer that, oh, by the way, he's delaying that timeline for an induction after getting so close to being eligible. So I think it just kind of, when you roll all those things together and then you mention the productivity, like, I think this is a really reasonable bet for a bounce back campaign if he's healthy. If his body cooperates, you mentioned he was on a 53-point pace, I think, over an 82-game season. And that's with his body trying to manage and basically fight against itself every day with the chronic immune response syndrome that he was dealing with. He detailed in great length his healing journey that he's been through, alternative medicine, spending time in India. It's not a perfect situation in terms of his body and his health at this age, all those things. But if you can reliably bet on him being somewhat close to healthy, and that's what his production was a few years ago with his body not cooperating, then if you even just set that as the baseline here, the Winnipeg Jets are going to be huge winners.
Let's talk about the bonuses, because those are certainly getting a lot of attention. Again, a $2 million base, and then at 20 games, 30 games, 40 games, 50 games, 60 games, he's going to get $550,000 for each of those. Frank, if the Jets make the playoffs and Toews plays 60 games in the regular season, this is going to be a $5.25 million cap hit for them. And that's like, regardless of if he's a fourth line center or a second line center, there really wasn't much of a hometown discount given here, was there?
Well, that's the point, though, for the Jets. They're saying, A, we believe in you. B, we really want you. And C, we're going to leverage all the cap space that we have. Not all of it, but we've got it. let's make sure that we're not leaving something on the table here so that he decides to go elsewhere. It's not for the money, but if you can also guarantee a much larger guarantee than some other teams would be willing to offer, like if you're thinking about Colorado, for instance, they can't really offer Toews $2 million plus the addition to earn a lot more because they just don't have the cap space to do it. The Jets can leverage all those things and put themselves in a spot where they say, yes, we believe you're worth it, and we're going to prove it to you. Here's how, and here's how you can unlock that much more money.
Yeah. And you see here still, even with Toews, if you want to earmark 5.25 for him, $21 million in cap space for the Jets if they want to go spend on Ehlers, Velarde's an RFA. Like, there's a lot of names on here that I'm sure they're interested in bringing back, but the point is they absolutely have the financial flexibility to do it. Let's go from one Canadian team to another. It was locker room cleanout day for the Edmonton Oilers yesterday, and that meant the players spoke to the media, and Connor McDavid's comments certainly created some noise on social. Frank, McDavid saying, quote, "Winning is the most important thing. If I feel like there's a good window here to win, then signing is no problem. I'm sure we'll get into it over the next couple of weeks, but I'm not in a rush. Some people look at July 1st date as a time to sign, but there is no rush. I will do what's best for my family." I mean, a lot of people circling the "with that being said" part from McDavid's quote as well. What did you make of Connor McDavid's comments on his future?
I mean, they were candid and raw because this is a guy who is reeling from being this close again from capturing his ultimate dream and getting his name etched on Lord Stanley's mug. And that hurts. And so 48 hours after the fact, of course, you're still going to be sour and dejected and all those things. That said, or maybe I should say with that said, the truth is, if Connor McDavid is looking for a chance to win a Stanley Cup, short of going to Florida 1 year from now, there really isn't a team better positioned anywhere else to be able to go chase that. There is nowhere else that you can play with Leon Draisaitl. Probably should have won the Hart Trophy this year. At least he got my number one vote. When it comes to some other players that have filled out this team, it's been a frustrating process. And that's what I think you see seep out here. This isn't directed at Stan Bowman or Jeff Jackson as much as it's directed at Peter Chiarelli and Ken Holland and whoever else has been in charge that haven't gotten this mix quite right. And you see the moves that Stan Bowman made since he took over. He now has to go through the process and undo some of those still. Victor Arvidsson on my trade targets board today. Evander Kane probably needs to move. Need a new deal for Evan Bouchard, as Connor McDavid said. And when you smash all those things together, I don't think anything's changed here. I don't believe it for, even a 1% chance that Connor McDavid is signing somewhere else. But him voicing his displeasure, that to me, I think of Connor McDavid like this. If you had told him and Leon Draisaitl, you can either get to game 6 of the Stanley Cup final or you can not make the playoffs. And by the way, get to game 6 and lose, they would choose not make the playoffs. And it's not because they don't want to compete. It's just because there's no flowers for them. There's no, hey, what an awesome year. Look at our team. We got so close. What a memorable and magical run that is. That's not how these guys think. They're not programmed to think that second place is an accomplishment. They think that second place is first loser. And so the struggle, the grind to get through 2 months of hockey to fall short, that's what you heard in that press conference yesterday.
One more on McDavid. The idea that, again, this extension he eventually signs will kick in when he's 29 years old, Frank. Is it going to be an 8-year deal, or do you think there's some merit to the idea of a 3 to 5 year term?
I don't think there's any merit to the idea of a 3 to 5 year term. That's not how Connor McDavid's wired. You can see how he loathes this process to even talk about it. The sooner he can get to a spot where he doesn't have to think about it again, having already been well set for life, he just wants to play hockey. He just wants to win, and that's it. And the other thing that I didn't mention that you probably heard is that Connor McDavid, I am sure, as one of the ultimate competitors, he's mad at himself that in Game 6, Game 7 last year, Game 6 this year, he didn't put up any points. He didn't impact the game, and Florida dictated and controlled that Stanley Cup finals, period, twice, plural, I should say. And that part for him is eating at him, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I saw some people saying, well, 3 to 5 years gives him flexibility. If the Oilers aren't winning or doing well, he can leave. And it's like, well, no, if he signs for 8 years, like if Connor McDavid puts his hand up in year 4 of an 8-year deal and says, I'm gone, then he's gone. Like it's not like the Oilers would hold him hostage.
They can't. And
Yeah.
the same thing with Draisaitl. So I think you just get what you get, and then you deal with it if you want to get out after the fact, because there's always ways and possibilities, and just put it behind you. He's 100, or let's just ballpark 8 times 16 is 128 million on top of the 100 he already signed for. That's the highest paid player ever in NHL history, plus all the endorsements, plus everything else. 228 million in career earnings, and you might still have 5 more years to play after that. I think he's doing just fine.
Yeah, I think he's doing good. Let's keep cruising along, Frank. The news from yesterday, we got a trade. The Stars moving on from money, or should I say moving on from Marchie. Mason Marchment going to the Seattle Kraken in exchange for a 3rd and a 4th round pick. This is a guy who scored 22 goals and still missed 14 games last season. So we're talking about a 25-plus goal pace over the course of an 82-game season. But Dallas was desperate to move out and clear out some cap space. They accomplished that. Are you a little surprised that it's Seattle who puts their hand up and says, hey, we'll take on the last year of that deal and give you something for it?
No, because Seattle needs to A, be a tougher team to play against, and B, wants to improve. And I'll add a C, which is if these things don't work out, they've now bought themselves basically for free using cap space a great trade chip for the deadline. So they could get way more back for Marchment, especially if they're willing to retain some next March than they gave up to get him now. And in the meantime, you see if he's a fit for your team and makes your team better. That's a disappointing ending for Marchment and the Stars. I think he wasn't nearly as impactful as they wanted him to be, and kind of made himself the odd man out. And for the Stars, it's disappointing because this is a guy that, for a team that needed to be harder to play against, you take out one of the guys in your lineup that actually had that capability. So it's honestly, it's a win for the Kraken. It's a lose-lose for the Stars. I think they're in a spot where they made their bed. They made some decisions that obviously make sense going out to get Mikko Rantanen, but now they have to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah, they basically, again, re-signed Duchesne for 4.5 and then move out Marchment's 4.5. And now they're kind of back to square one with $5 million roughly in cap space. They could buy out Matt Dumba, which would shoot that up to about $7.3 million in cap space. If they wanted to get crazy, they could buy out the last 2 years of Ilya Lyubushkin, although I'm not sure if it's a great idea to sign up for 4 years of dead cap space. But you can kind of now, after this deal, start to see the path to, okay, if you bring back Jamie Benn on a short-term, low-money deal, they have some flexibility here, like the Jason Robertson idea, Frank. You can see a path to them icing a competitive roster next year without having to dump off Robertson.
Right. Yeah. And that's why Robertson has drastically slid down my trade targets board. He was trending that way before these moves, but look, they're not out of the woods yet. They have 5 roster spots to fill with potentially 7. If Dumba's gone and you buy him out, that's 6 roster spots to fill with $7.3 million in cash. You're still up against it, and there still needs to be other stuff that happens. So getting Lyubushkin off your books in its entirety would be a big benefit for this team. Then you could start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's keep cruising along, Frank. Obviously, there's been a lot of viral moments from this Florida Panthers Stanley Cup celebration over the last 48 hours. They are partying hard and living their best lives. And yesterday, Brad Marchand, in really just typical Brad Marchand fashion, he took to his Instagram to thank all the teams who helped this Florida Panthers team become what they are. He was given thank you messages to the Minnesota Wild for Dmitry Kulikov, the Buffalo Sabres for Sam Reinhart. And I thought it'd be an interesting time to look back at some of these moves. Like, to think about Gustav Forsling being a guy who was plucked off waivers, to think about Sam Bennett, the MVP of the Stanley Cup playoffs in this second straight Stanley Cup win for the Panthers, Emil Heineman in a second-round pick. Like, so much has been talked about the state income tax stuff, what a big advantage it is. But like, state income tax doesn't allow your pro scouting to go, whoa, Gustav Forsling, we like that guy, or Sam Bennett, that guy's undervalued and he's a much better player than what he's being given the opportunity to show in Calgary. State income tax can maybe help you keep a contender, but it certainly didn't build this Stanley Cup borderline modern dynasty.
Yeah, not a dynasty, by the way. We didn't have that debate, and that's okay. But dynasties don't seed years, and 2 in a row is a repeat, not a dynasty. 3 in a row is. So we'll see. And they're going to be really well positioned to do it. And I love Brad Marchand because I think what started as probably in his head, like one slide on this to be funny and cheeky, turned into like, oh, I don't really want to shit on anyone in case I have to go somewhere in free agency. So I'm just going to say everyone, that way no one can be mad at anything, which is it's next level thinking right there. That said, Sam Bennett, obviously with a message for the crowd at 11 Miami with his, I'm not bleeping going anywhere. I ain't going anywhere, to quote Wolf of Wall Street. I think that they've made some progress there for him to get to that point to say that. Obviously, maybe not pen to paper. And to be honest, the Panthers want to keep that as quiet as possible because they don't want to signal to anyone what else they're up to, even though everyone can kind of mostly put it all together. But funny and impressive stuff by Marchand. And before we move off of the Panthers and get to trade targets, I just want to add one thing because I didn't get a chance to write the story, but I asked Bill Zito about this at Media Day at the Cup Final, about the impact of other people around him on his staff. And obviously there's some really valued members, and Sonny Mehta has gotten a lot of love for his work and the analytics community, of course. But wanted to give a shout out to Rick Dudley, who is an advisor there, and is someone that is just such a unique hockey personality and guy who maybe is, a Hall of Fame level scout, like a true eye for talent. When you talk about some of those names that the Florida Panthers have acquired, Rick Dudley directly responsible for Gustav Forsling, Sam Reinhart, and Sam Bennett. Directly.
And if you don't have Sam Reinhart popping 50 goals last year and scoring the game-winning goal in Game 7, if you don't have Gustav Forsling playing 23, 24 minutes a night, shutting down Connor McDavid in back-to-back Cup finals, like, we're talking about maybe no Stanley Cups, never mind 2.
Yeah, and to get someone like Forsling off of waivers, are you kidding? He knew Forsling from Carolina. He watched Sam Reinhart very closely in Buffalo. Like, all those things come together, and it's, Bill Zito's getting a ton of the love for helping turn, along with owner Vinny Viola, the Panthers into the gold standard, or maybe the silver standard, we should say. But with that said, it takes other people along the way, and Rick Dudley is certainly one of them.
Yeah, very well said. Let's get to our big segment for the day. It's a new edition of Icebreakers, and it's brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. You can apply for a Charm Diamond Flexity card today and get approved for no interest financing on your purchase in minutes. For more information on that, or to check out their large selection of Canadian lab-grown diamonds and mine diamonds, visit them online at charmdiamondcenters.com. 7 new names on your trade targets board, Frank. Let's start with the highest debutant, if you will, in Evander Kane, who comes in at 6. He has a teammate in Victor Arvidsson down at 19 as well. But Evander Kane being as high as he is, I guess I'll ask you a little bit of a two-parter. Better than 50% chance he's moved out of Edmonton by the end of this summer. And is there a market for him, or is this just going to be a pure cap dump, or could the Oilers have to attach?
I think the Mason Marchment deal probably helps set the table in terms of what the Oilers could reasonably expect to get in return. No one's going to be doing the Oilers any favors. And the difference between Kane and Marchment is that, well, Marchment doesn't come with any baggage. So Kane obviously does. I don't know if it's fair to say that he's worn out his welcome. I think it's probably knocking on the door of that category. I do think that as the Oilers look for cap flexibility, Arvidsson is one, but if you really want to fix your goaltending and you want to bring in someone to play with Stuart Skinner and you want to pay that guy $6 million, where are you going to get that money from? It's got to come from somewhere. And I don't know that the Oilers can afford to squeeze at other points in their lineup. They survived, obviously, an entire regular season without Kane, and he was good for stretches of the playoffs, but not as consistent, and also played a really selfish brand of hockey when it came to the Stanley Cup final itself. So I do think better than a 50% chance, which is why he's so high up on the board at 6, but it may not come together quickly, and it may even get to a place for the Oilers where it's painful.
$5.125 million left on that deal, a UFA at the end of next season. If there was a case to be made for a team taking a chance on him, if there's ever a time where Evander Kane should be on his best behavior, it's going into a contract year, especially considering what we last saw from him, like you said, in the Cup final. So I don't know. I do think there's a chance whatever team acquires him gets the best out of him.
Yeah, well, he's going to be highly motivated, that's for sure. But deep down, I'm wondering if Evander Kane is sitting here watching this going, man, I would love a buyout. Get double dip for next season and become a free agent now. Yeah, I don't think the buyout makes a ton of sense. It's 2.3 and 1. So it's still like enough cap savings where you also don't have to pull your hair out, but not as clean, obviously, as doing it the trade route.
Another set of teammates debuting on your board. You have JG Pageau at 8 and Noah Dobson down at 25. Frank, the Pageau thing, just a matter of the Islanders, again, almost similar to the Oilers, I guess. They're trying to get some cap flexibility here, right? And Pageau's a guy heading into the final year of a deal with a $5 million AAV.
Not entirely. I think they'd be comfortable having Pageau come back and play. But if you're thinking about how thin the center market is, and it's getting thinner by the moment, Brock Nelson, Jonathan Toews, Matt Duchene, go down the list, Yanni Gourde, like they're all getting crossed off. So if you're trying to find a center as a free agent and you can't get one, well, hey, the Islanders are sitting here with a guy who only has 1 year left on his deal. And a year ago at this time, he was trade fodder for a different reason as like a cap dump. He went out and had a great year. A statistically depressed New York Islanders roster, Pageau improves from the year prior. And at 40-some points, a $5 million cap hit isn't really out of whack, let alone for a player who also plays a pretty complete game and competes, that they've got some real positive trade equity here, and they can take that equity and sprinkle it further around their roster to fill other holes.
What about Dobson at 25? Obviously a pending RFA. You said on the DFO rundown his ask could be somewhere around $11 million. Is this just a matter of maybe the Islanders going like, ooh, that's a high price tag, let's explore the market? Like, he is low on your list. Granted, he's there.
He is low on the list, and that's to indicate that I wouldn't necessarily classify it as likely. But that said, an important reminder and distinction for people, because they wanted to seize on this on social media yesterday after listening to the DFO rundown, and that was, it's an initial ask. We don't think that it's going to end up at 11 million. No one does. But I'll tell you what, it's definitely put the Islanders in a position where they go, no matter what, this is going to be expensive. And it's not to say that they aren't interested in the player for the long haul or anything like that. At 25, with some up and down productivity seasons, plus a new number 1 overall pick coming in likely Matthew Schaefer, you're going to have to make decisions on how you navigate your cap. If you give Dobson 8 years or whatever it is, what are you going to be paying Schaefer if he goes along in his productivity, if it's linear and he is the player you think he could be? And then how does that all fit together with the rest of what you're doing? So when you've got a guy who has a 70-point season under his belt as a right shot defenseman, they've got options. They don't have to knuckle down and pay him if they don't want to. And this is Matthew Darche, their new first-time GM, arriving at a very critical position in a real short period of time. Again, not saying it's likely, but I'm saying if this is going to be a painful negotiation and or the Islanders believe deep down in their gut that they're not willing to pay, this is the time to move on.
Kane, Arvidsson, Dobson, Pageau. You made sure no one was feeling too lonely on your trade targets board, and you even gave Erik Karlsson a friend. Right after Karlsson is Brian Rust. And on one hand, I go, man, 3 more years, $5.125 million for a guy whose floor is 20 goals and his ceiling is 30 plus. that should be a pretty easy deal to move. On the other hand, he is 33 years old. Are his best days behind him? How strong do you think the market could be for Brian Rust in Pittsburgh?
I think it's really solid. He went out and totally knocked it out of the park last season with his year. You mentioned 30 plus goals, 60 plus points, and at that cap hit is very reasonable. So if you were to get that guy on the open market today after a season like that, it's probably 7 or something like that, with the cap continuing to increase. Are you okay with the 3 years remaining? I think for the Pittsburgh Penguins, with a team knowing that they need to continue to tear this down, you get out while the getting's good on Rust. His value may never be higher than it is at this exact moment in time, coming off of a season like that. And you don't want to be in a spot later on where you keep him, you hang on to him for another year or two, and then you go, oh my God, this is painful. Why didn't we do something earlier? As I wrote in the trade targets piece, get out while the getting's good.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Again, when you look at this Pittsburgh team, like, a lot of those contracts have obviously gotten to that point. With Carlson, it's like, okay, you might have to retain just to get him. With Rust, it's a legitimate chance to get assets back. And I think Kyle Dubas absolutely needs to pounce on that.
Agreed. And wanted to touch quickly before we move on Mattias Samuelsson. If Pat, you want to throw that board up there again. It's a really interesting case what happens next with Samuelsson in Buffalo. They made a major bet, $30 million on a 7-year deal for him to be a top 4 defenseman for the long haul. He was a trendy buyout candidate because he's under 26 and they could save 2/3 of that money, $14 million plus in real cash savings with a really cheap cap hit. It would be $700,000, ish under league minimum for the next 10 seasons. So I'm not predicting that a buyout is coming. I'm just saying that if you are unsure, again, as you arrive at this juncture, and for a Sabres team that you thought would be your bona fide defender and your team cannot still defend, maybe this is something that you look at, if not on the buyout front, then on the trade front.
Yeah. Again, a 25-year-old, like, I think about some guys who have, it's not direct comparables. Obviously, we just laughed about Gustav Forsling being a guy that's on waivers, but I think about a Mike Matheson, right, who was in a spot, signed the big ticket with Florida, then it went bad, and then he got a fresh start, and all of a sudden, hey, looks like a really good defenseman again. He's obviously now in Montreal, but he had the stop in Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know. I look at a guy who's 6'4" and can kill penalties well, 25 years old. Like, I'd be willing to take a bet on him if I was another team. Let's get to our daily Faceoff inbox question, actually. We'll stay in the Eastern Conference for this one, Frank. Joshua Miller is one of our resident Carolina Hurricanes fans in the YouTube chat. He put in hashtag askdfo. What are the Canes going to do? It feels like nothing. Then he put in a little sad face there, and I feel for him, Frank. Can you give Joshua Miller anything to smile about on the Carolina front? Do you think they're still planning to be aggressive this summer?
Without a doubt. That's all they know. You're off to a good start today, bud. You got some real value in Eric Robinson at 4 times $1.7 million signed today. So something to feel good about heading into the weekend. And just wanted to dispel one thing, because this seemed to pop up on social media, but I can tell you that there's zero indication that I've heard that Svechnikov is someone that is available. So obviously not on my trade targets board. He would be if he was. And I don't think there's any truth to that rumbling.
Yeah, we did get that question asked as well in there, so appreciate you clarifying that. Let's get to our daily bets, brought to you by Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 or older. Frank, they put up their odds for individual awards next season, and the one that I find most interesting, it's Ivan Demidov versus the field for the Calder Trophy. What do you make? The Habs potential super rookie, a potential back-to-back Calder Trophy run for the Montreal Canadiens as well.
Well, I'm taking the field, with all due respect to Demidov. And Pat, if you want to throw the original odds board up, if I were to zero in on someone, it would be Zeev Buium. I also don't think that we're in a position. Jimmy Snuggerud would be a really good bet too. I just think Calgary as a whole struggles to score that as good as Zane Parekh is, and I think he will be. I don't know that he's going to have the point total required, but I think Jimmy Snuggerud is like their ready-made replacement for Jordan Kyrou, which is why I've wondered if he's someone that would be available. And Sam Dickinson might have a really strong year on the back end. That'd be a nice value play for the San Jose Sharks. But Michael Misa and anyone else that's drafted highly this year, I think this is one of those draft classes where we don't see anyone from the 2025 draft playing as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, I think we talked about that kind of a month ago, I think, with Stephen Ellis, and he had a similar viewpoint to you. He's like, I don't know if any of these guys are truly NHL ready yet, but also you never know.
Such a tough spot for Misa, like 132 points in the OHL, and you go, what is there left to play for? Maybe that's why he's on the board.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up the show. Let's wrap up our week with a little bit of garbage time, Frank. A couple things. I think the NHL, with their mic'd up behind the scenes stuff in these playoffs, they totally took it to another level. I found it very, very enjoyable, from the Landeskog one we played in round one and then all the way to the final moments as Paul Maurice gave his fourth line a little bit of love. Let's take a listen.
I'm going to get you out there. I want you three guys on the ice for the last shift. So you throw your off and we win this, because we're down 2-0 against Toronto, and you got us here. You get the last shift. Barkov! Nose has the last shift!
Frank, one says a lot about how tight-knit this Panthers team, even though that fourth line didn't play a ton, obviously a lot of respect, and I figured it was fitting to wrap up Stanley Cup final week, giving a little bit more love to the Florida Panthers.
So good. And that's also part of what makes Paul Maurice special. You never forget the guys that help get you there. It doesn't matter if Jonah Gadjevich is playing 6 minutes a night, some nights in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Those 6 minutes at times matter. And look, if the Stanley Cup handoff didn't tell you something about how the Panthers think about everyone in that room having significant value and the true meaning of a team, that clip is yet more evidence.
Very well said. That is a wrap on another week of Daily Faceoff Live. I mean, a Saturday and a Sunday. We're over 48 hours away from our next show. There will be trades. There will be news for us to break down on Monday. It'll also be the kickoff of draft week here on Daily Faceoff and around the hockey world. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll see you back right here Monday, noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.